Welcome, friends, it is I, LostScarf, and it's time for the Short Smite Beginner Guide to Isis. She is one of the strongest mid-gods in the game, and she also has one of the best ultimates in the game as well. She's a good god to learn, and we're going to go over her today. As always, this is a guide for beginners, so you can get comfortable with a god, maybe want to try her out, see what you can do with her, because she's a really good god to know, because she can do a lot of work. It's also good to learn a little bit about her, just so you can fight her a little bit better, because she can be a very big terror on the battlefield, from the start of the game to the end of the game. Advanced and expert players, of course, this is not for you, but if you find anything you feel that should have been elaborated on because I did not cover it enough, go ahead and say so in the comments. Give people more information, that's always a useful thing. We're going to go over her abilities, her class and roles, tips and combos, and stats you should consider when you're making purchases for her. So let's get going. Abilities of Isis. First up is her passive Funeral Rites. What happens is whenever a god dies near her, she gains a stack. This is from allies and enemies dying near her. And each stack gives her plus 2 HP 5 and MP 5 regeneration aura, up to 10 stacks, so 20 of each, and she loses them when she dies. This is a useful thing for just having a nice little regen in any situation, but the thing about it is, of course, in the early game, unless you're getting kills or ganks, you're not going to really get much out of this passive just yet, but team fights will happen pretty well. You just don't want to die, so you can give your team a little bit of an oomph as far as just regeneration goes for prolonged battles. Her first ability is called Wing Gust. Now what happens is she shoots 4 line shots in succession that pierce everything, and she's able to move during it without having any movement penalty. She also gets a movement speed increase, and is immune to roots and knockback during the entire thing. It's very helpful against a lot of mid-gods who have roots and knockbacks. Second ability, Spirit Ball. Line shot that explodes at maximum distance, or when you cast again to detonate. It scales in damage the further it flies out. It also stuns all targets hit. Third ability, Dispel Magic. This is a small range AoE that silences, slows, and temporarily removes enemy magical protections. If this ability hits, all allies within the range of Isis's passive also gain temporary magical protection. And then there's her ultimate, Circle of Protection. This is a large AoE that lasts 5 seconds or sooner if you cast it again. Allies in it take reduced damage, and the damage dealt charges up the staff. Fully charged ult does about 3.5 times damage and healing at level 20. It's like only 1 time and goes up as you go with each level to the ultimate. And when the ult ends, enemies in the AoE are damaged and allies are healed. So it takes about 4,000 damage to fully charge it at the final level, and then it does 3.5 times damage and healing, which is a huge chunk for any situation. Class and roles. Isis is a mage, which means she's a glass cannon. She can do a bunch of damage, she can clear lane very well, but she can't take too much damage. What makes Isis so powerful as a mage is that she's capable of being damage or utility. She can damage enemies a lot, she can stun, she can silence, she can slow, she can take protections away. She has this big, large AoE protection that she can put around her team for a moment. She is a threat at all times, regardless of level, because of all the utilities she has. Now for beginners, mid is the place you put Isis. She is one of the best mid gods in the game. Her Wing Gust allows her to clear lane very well, and maneuverability during it allows her to be a hard target to hit. Her abilities give her lots of opportunities to kill, open ally ganks, and prevent enemy ganks. During teamfighting phase, she can lock down priority targets or slow down high damage enemies with her stun and silence. Big teamfights and objectives will usually be in her favor thanks to her ultimate. Tips and combos. First up, try not to die. Maximize your passive as long as you can, because, well, it's not the best passive, but it can do something the longer you have it. Next tip is, all of Isis' abilities go through walls. This is very important. You can kill with the Wing Gust through walls, you can stun ball someone through a wall, you can silence through a wall, and put your ult through the wall. It's very nice to know that. Next tip is, stun balls are all about timing. If you get the timing of your stun balls, you can do so much damage. It takes practice, but if you can time the range and how long it takes them to travel, you can do a lot of damage and cause a lot of trouble to your enemies. Next one has to do with stun ball as well. This has to do with just clearing camps. If you can maximum range your stun ball on camps, you can clear them very quickly if you have the right amount of damage. And it's just helpful to do that, just so you get them done sooner. Next tip is, save ult for guaranteed kills, objectives, and desperate situations. Guaranteed kills are when the enemy's really low on HP and you can just use your ultimate. Sometimes you want to save it though for more desperate situations because team fights are coming up. Or if you want to get the gold to her Fire Giant with the objectives, her ultimate is very good at securing those. Or stealing them in the right situation. And lastly is, her ult does massive healing and damage at fully charged. This is something that you might not realize. It can do a lot of healing damage, but if you can get it all the way full, it can do a ton of both. Now when it comes to combos, there's really only 2 combos. That is 2-3-1 ult and 3-2-1 ult. Now, the way these combos work is it depends on how far away you are and what you're trying to do. Now, if you're trying to prevent your enemy from doing a counterattack or from escaping, you want to lock them down with your 2 and your 3 or whatever order, depending on distance and where you're going through a wall or what, and then using your Wind Gust for most of the damage. Now, if they're hurt enough, you can use your ultimate to finish them off. That's really what's going on with these combos. That's more maybe a 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 situation there. Usually you want to save your ultimate for the big fight situations. That's later on in the match. If it's more early on, you can use your ults more for just killing and protecting yourself than for just team fights, because those aren't happening just yet. Purchases for Isis. Now, the thing about Isis is she's a really great utility god because of her silence, her stun, and everything else she can do. She's really good at that. So you can either build her for damage to be a deadly utility god, or you can build her a little bit tanky, a little beefy, so that she can stay alive long enough to be a strong utility god. That way she doesn't get killed, she can keep holding people down, cause a lot of trouble. Those are your options really with her. You can always go somewhere in the middle if you want, but something you should really consider, of course, is cooldown. Cooldown is worth getting on her, especially if you can max it up, because you can stun more often, silence more often, ult more often, just control the fight a lot easier with more cooldown. It's really good for her. When it comes to actives, you can get defensive actives, you can get beads or Aegis to keep her alive. You can get more team-based actives like Heavenly Agility. That'd be really good, just keep your team moving around. You can get Weakening Curse to slow people in your ultimate. You can also get Enfeebling Curse to slow them down. You can cause a lot of trouble with Isis. Just know which one feels right for the situation, and you can control the battlefield very well. In conclusion, Isis is one of the strongest mages and mid-gods in the game. She is capable of killing other mid-gods at levels 1 and 2, only rivaled by Anubis. If you can pull ahead of your opponents with Isis, you can usually stay ahead pretty well because of the way she works. And even if you fall behind, your utility will allow you to continually be a nuisance all game despite being behind in level. However, you will need greater accuracy and forethought to be a threat when behind. Aiming well with all abilities and knowing when and where to ultimate will make you the top chicken of the coop. So that right there is the guide for Isis. She's a very good mid-god. She's just great at controlling the battlefield at all times. If you know what the hell you're doing with her, she is always a threat. As always, it is not a bad idea to share this guide with your friends so they can have an understanding of Isis as well, learn a bit about her so they can fight her better, or play as her better, just want to experiment with her, because she is definitely worth having in your roster. She's a very good god to have. Coming up next is another good god worth having, that is Janus. He's a very strong god in the mid, he does a lot of damage, great maneuverability, really good at controlling a fight as well with his ultimate. He can just do a lot of work as well, so he'll be coming up next. So that right there is the guide. I had fun making it, hope you had fun watching it, and learned something, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.